How does one determine the moral worth of non-human animals under utilitarianism? Utilitarianism is a normative ethical theory that seeks to maximize the overall well-being or happiness of all sentient beings. It is often associated with the phrase, the greatest happiness principle, and the idea that actions should be evaluated based on the net amount of happiness or pleasure they produce, minus the net amount of suffering or pain they cause. This ethical framework is particularly relevant when it comes to determining the moral worth of non-human animals, as it asks us to consider the consequences of our actions on the well-being of all sentient beings, including non-human animals. In utilitarianism, the moral worth of non-human animals is determined by the amount of happiness or suffering they are capable of experiencing. This means that non-human animals have moral value and should be taken into account in ethical decision-making, as they are capable of experiencing pleasure, pain, and other forms of well-being or suffering. The greater the capacity for well-being, the greater the moral worth of the animal, and the more we should strive to promote their well-being and prevent their suffering. One way to determine the moral worth of non-human animals under utilitarianism is to consider their capacity for pleasure and pain. In general, animals with more developed nervous systems are capable of experiencing a wider range of sensations and emotions, and thus have a higher moral worth. For example, mammals such as dogs and cats are generally considered to have a higher moral worth than insects or mollusks, as they are capable of more complex emotions and experiences. However, this is not always the case, as some non-mammalian animals, such as octopuses, have been shown to have surprisingly complex cognitive and emotional capacities. Another way to determine the moral worth of non-human animals under utilitarianism is to consider their capacity for autonomy and agency. Autonomy refers to an animal's ability to make its own choices and act on its own desires, while agency refers to its ability to affect its own environment and interact with other beings. Animals with higher levels of autonomy and agency are generally considered to have a higher moral worth, as they are capable of pursuing their own interests and having a greater impact on the world around them. For example, chimpanzees and other great apes have been shown to have a high degree of autonomy and agency, and are often used in research and conservation efforts as a result. A third way to determine the moral worth of non-human animals under utilitarianism is to consider their social and emotional bonds with other animals, including humans. Animals that form close social bonds with others are generally considered to have a higher moral worth, as their well-being is intertwined with that of their social group. For example, dogs and other domesticated animals are often considered to have a high moral worth because of their close bonds with humans, while animals such as dolphins and elephants are known for their complex social structures and emotional intelligence. Utilitarianism also asks us to consider the consequences of our actions on the well-being of non-human animals. This means that we should strive to minimize their suffering and promote their well-being, even if this comes at a cost to human interests. For example, if we are considering whether to use animals for medical research, we should weigh the potential benefits of the research against the harm it may cause to the animals involved. If the harm outweighs the benefits, then the research should not be conducted, as it would be incompatible with the utilitarian principle of maximizing overall well-being. In conclusion, utilitarianism provides a framework for determining the moral worth of non-human animals based on their capacity for pleasure and pain, autonomy and agency, and social and emotional bonds with others. By considering the well-being of all sentient beings, including non-human animals, we can make ethical decisions that promote the greatest overall happiness and minimize suffering. This ethical approach has important implications for how we treat non-human animals in a wide range of contexts, from animal agriculture to wildlife conservation to scientific research. It asks us to consider the complex emotional and cognitive lives of non-human animals and to strive to minimize their suffering and promote their well-being whenever possible. By doing so, we can create a more compassionate and just society that values the well-being of all sentient beings, not just humans.